the number to Metropolitan New York City. I am the hip and this is the
Yes. Hello, good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon, whenever you might be tuning in to Hip and the Lip. That's right. That's who we are, Hip and the Lip, a New York sports podcast, as the Hip is shaking his head profusely at the Lip's standard opening. But hey, that's our bit. That's my bit, at least. That's how we roll. Yes, indeed. We have a jam-packed show, or maybe not so much jam-packed, maybe just a few topics that we'll touch on and get out of the way as we kind of clear a path for football, which is, I know, on everybody's minds now as we've hit August and training camps. And, oh, my God, the fantasy sleepers. I got to start doing my research. Oh, my God, overload football. How many leagues should I do? Oh, my God. All right, next.
Corey Coleman, Will Fuller, Jared Doxson. The list goes on. Get your research done, folks. Fantasy football coming down the line. We got it, like the Lip said. There is some cleaning. We had the baseball trade deadline, 4 p.m. yesterday. It came, it went, it passed. The Yankees doing some stuff. Yes, the Mets doing some stuff. We'll get to those things. There was some football brain injury headlines today tying back into a Jets rookie. So that was an interesting storyline to see unfold. But opening remarks that you just can't wait to get off your chest. Oh God, just fire away.
I figured, our fans have told us, our listeners have told us that, they enjoy when we get like a little current events, politics incorporated every now and again. So just a little quick opening before we get into the trade deadline bonanza that it was in Major League Baseball. Well, so you may have heard that White House Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci, a.k.a. the Mooch, has been fired after only 10 days in office. Now, of course, we do a sports show, so let's put this into context that our fans will also appreciate. So Scaramucci's tenure as White House Communications Director was just a little bit longer than Wally Backman's tenure as manager of the Diamondbacks, which was a whole 4 days, but it was still shorter than last year's World Series Game 7, which I'm still not sure has ended as of yet. But hey, at least the Mooch was fired 4 less times than Billy Martin was by Big Stein. Now, apparently, Scaramucci's old hedge fund won't take him back. However, his profanity-laced tirades have made him the front-runner to replace Mike Francesa. Yes, Chris Christie apparently was considered a little too warm and fuzzy compared to the Mooch. So Scaramucci's out in front now, folks. Get excited. All right, next. Like you said, off my chest.
Really?
Eh? Indeed, that's right. No, everybody enjoyed the Mooch.
Okay,
We're going to miss the Mooch. It's a shame he only lasted 10 days in the public eye. So,
well, but he did go to Harvard Law School, as he likes to point out. So that could carry him forever and ever. Obviously, the more there was like a Facebook clip of all the times that he said it in public that he attended Harvard Law. So good for him.
Yes, good for you.
We're all very proud. Yeah. And apparently the school accidentally listed him, Harvard Law, in the alumni directory as deceased. And they had to issue an apology statement.
Maybe he's dead to them or something. Yeah, you're dead to us now, Mooch. We don't want to acknowledge your association with us. Go away. That's funny.
Okay, so let's get to the Yankees, and this is a team now that has rebounded. 9 of their last 12 in the winning column after, taking a step back in June and leading up to the All-Star break. So this team also making moves, clearly want to be a contender. There's an opportunity to do so. They have first place, and yes, they go out and they get what they need, and that's starting pitching. So look, they first acquired Jaime Garcia, a left-handed pitcher from the Braves, who had a more notable. I think it's is it Jamie Garcia or Jaime Garcia? And he came from the Braves, but had a more notable stint with the Cardinals. He's not the most durable of pitchers,
but
he
came from Minnesota. He was traded from the Braves to Minnesota. Made 1 start for them.
Oh, that's right.
Yankees.
Okay, thanks for that clarification, as is key to the breakdown.
Yes.
And then they made their splash, if you will, getting Sonny Gray within the last hour or so of the deadline. And of course, the Yankees were linked to him throughout this whole this as the trade deadline approached. And yes, they got their guy, a guy that's not going to blow hitters away, but a guy that has been a solid starter all of his career and is going to give you 6 solid innings and hand it off to the bullpen. And so, he'll be under team control through next year, maybe the season even after that. So
yeah, he's not a free agent until 2020.
And until 2020. Yep. And yeah, I mean, the Yankees had to give away some talent to get this guy, but realizing that starting pitching was an issue for this club. So, Brian Cashman strikes again, and they're going to be in the thick of this pennant race, barring injuries or something otherwise catastrophic. Your thoughts, Dilip?
Yes, indeed. Honestly, here's the way I take the Yankees season. So the Yankees, they come into the season, we're all talking about, well, they have young talent. Let's see what they can do. Maybe they'll be in contention for a wild card for for a few months. Maybe at the trade deadline, the Yankees will have a decision to make. We talked about that, of course, before the season started. Again, we've touched on the last few episodes. I predicted that they would win, between 82, 84, 85 wins. 85 I thought was maybe the ceiling for them. And what I love about these moves is that whenever a team appears, at least, a team is rarely going to admit they're in the middle of that they're going to start a rebuild in any sport. Now, every sport, of course, is different. It's a different landscape in baseball. The Yankees are never, ever going to admit, though, to any kind of rebuild, implying that, hey, we're going to be bad for a couple of years, fans, so you can take a nap and we'll wake you up when we're actually halfway decent and maybe ready to contend for a championship. That's not the Yankee way, as we know. So while the Yankees coming into the season may not have been prepared to or anticipated going out and making 2 major moves like these at the trade deadline, as soon as the season unfolded and it turned the way it did, and yeah, they hit their slump. Their high water mark was 15 games over, and they swept the Orioles in June, and everything was great. And then they hit the skids, and they had their rough stretch. But after coming out of the All-Star break, they played much better. And as you said, after tonight's loss, they won 9 out of 12. But the Yankees said, you know what? We are in the business of winning. We're in the business of contending for a championship. Just because it looked like we were going to be beginning a rebuild and maybe not ready to contend for a championship for a couple of years, we're there. How would we how would we explain it to our fans if we just sat put, made no moves, when the American League is as wide open as it is and there for the taking? So what do the Yankees do? They go out and they don't do anything foolish. They don't do anything rash and trade, Torres or Frazier or one of their, top prospects, or Sheffield or whatever, the guy they got from Miller last year. Instead, they trade good prospects. They do trade good prospects, and Kapirlian, who we had heard about a lot earlier in the season, but now is out at least through probably all of next year with Tommy John surgery. Jorge Mateo, who had been in the Yankee organization for, I want to say, at least like 4 or 5 years or something. He was signed as an international free agent who had been highly rated but bounced up and down, and he was good, he was up, he was down. And Dustin Fowler, who we saw literally for 10 minutes until he tore up his knee, a few weeks ago. So they trade 3 good prospects for Gray, yes, but they're getting a guy that is only 27, is not going to be a free agent until 2020, and is a legitimate frontline pitcher. Is he an ace pitcher? Maybe not, but he's still a good, really good at times, frontline starting pitcher. And he is going to help this team now because they are there to contend right now. And that's exactly what winning organizations do. They make moves when they have an opportunity to win. To hell with any kind of linear rebuild. Well, it's not our year to win. We'll win in 2021 or something. No. That's not how you do things. And as a Yankee fan, you have to appreciate the fact that we root for an organization, for a team that is in the business of winning, and that's exactly what these moves were. It's to win and to win now without completely destroying, their future.
Well, I think Cashman would have been criticized if they didn't make these moves, considering that they're in first place and that they had to essentially do something like this to feel confident that they could make a deep run. And sure enough, they get the job done. And just jumping across coasts here. How about the Dodgers getting Darvish within 10 minutes of the deadline?
Was it within 10 minutes? Yeah, I didn't hear about it.
An embarrassment of riches for the Los Angeles Dodgers. I mean, piling on.
Fox would. Can you imagine after having the Indian Cub World Series last year? Can you imagine them getting a Yankee Dodger World Series this year? They would be pleasuring themselves until next year with that, if they were able to get a Yankee Dodger World Series, which we haven't seen now since 1981. So, but yeah, I mean,
you could show them how to pleasure themselves. I'm sure they could take some pointers.
Indeed,
some pointers up.
Yes, cowboy up, indeed. But the Dodgers, the stars are aligned for them to, this is their year. If there was ever a year for the Dodgers to get to the World Series, this is their year. I have a coworker who's also a diehard, giant, major, huge Dodger fan, who is also a listener of our show. And, I've been saying to him, hey, look, if the Dodgers, if there's an opportunity for them to make a move like this, you strike now, because the stars are aligned for them this is finally their year. They're a zillion games ahead. Washington's good, but Washington has been good and they haven't gotten the job done in the playoffs. The Cubs, it looks like the Cubs are going to make their move now and they'll win that division, maybe going away, so that you figure that they'll be in, and they're dangerous, of course. But the stars are aligned for the Dodgers to make a run. I mean, the National League, there's no point of even paying attention. The National League is completely finished. I mean, you have your two wild card teams most likely in the Diamondbacks and the Rockies. I mean, could one of them slip? Sure. But most likely, those are your two wild card teams and your three division winners, the Cubs, the Dodgers, and the Nationals. It's unbelievable how baseball wanted to encourage pennant races and try and, cultivate and foster pennant races with these extra, the extra wild card and, having the wild card playing game and so forth. And what the National League is done, it's July or August 1st now, and the National League is finished. And the American League couldn't be more wide open. You have so many teams that are still in it in the American League.
I mean, look, I don't know. The second wild card has added more excitement than lack thereof to date, and it's just a weird circumstance that having two wild cards almost makes there less competition, because if there were only one wild card, then the Rockies and the Diamondbacks would be fighting for that one wild card spot. Whereas
True.
Because you have two, they're kind of both settled in there, and there's no team that's really close. Yeah. I think it's better to have two wild card spots. There's more competition fighting for two rather than one. It's just a weird way that it worked out this year. I don't think it should speak to being against two wild cards, but it's just the way that
not necessarily.
It's not going to always work out, and I know what you mean. The baseball's after parity, but that being said,
it's incredible how bad the National League is. It's so top heavy. You have, you're really, really good to great teams, and then you have so many mediocre to bad teams. I mean, your Phillies. I mean, the Giants. Who could have ever predicted that the Giants would be this?
Giants are just a disaster. Giants are a disaster. Yeah, it's a weird year. As they always seem to be, and that's why we keep watching. Because
the American League could not be more up for grabs. It is unbelievable. And the Astros, the Astros are still, a zillion games ahead of their division, and they're going to get in.
They are, and they can't stop. I mean, they just can't stop hitting. Jose Altuve.
Oh, he's incredible.
Finished the month of July hitting like 480. He was at 500 up until a couple of games before the end of the month, just having a sick.
My God.
I mean, he's an unbelievable hitter, and he showed us that. He's showed us that for several years running now.
But they're starting pitching, though. I mean, it's a huge
exactly. So
Ace is Ace. Lance McCullers is on the DL. Keuchel just came back, and Fires just got destroyed tonight. I mean, that rotation is full of question marks. I mean, they're going to be there, but
pitcher. They added a starter.
Lariano, please.
Was it Lariano?
Yeah, what is this? What is this? Circa 2000 when he burst onto the fantasy scene and everybody was falling all over themselves to pick him up, and he had like a 1-something ERA. Remember that? I mean, this is circa 2000 or something like that. I mean, the American League could not be more wide open. It is remarkable. And that's why the Yankees made the moves that they did. And again, as a Yankee fan, it's going to be fun to going down the stretch.
Interesting that the Red Sox, David Price,
get out of their own way.
Is on the shelf. And what did they really do?
Well, Addison Reed, watch out, American League East. Addison Reed.
No, funny you say that because the Red Sox end up blowing the lead in the 9th. And did they lose? Let's see if Cleveland held on. No, Boston came back in the bottom of the 9th tonight, 3 runs. Jeez. Wow. So Cody Allen actually ends up blowing the lead. So Cleveland was down a run in the 9th, top of the 9th, scored 2 to take the lead, and then Boston scored 3 to win 12-10.
Well, how about that? How about Eduardo Nunez? Actually, Eduardo Nunez was a really good get for them. They needed a power bat. They really needed a power bat. But Nunez is a really good. I mean, Yankee fans remember him when he was with the Yankees. They got him from the Giants, the Red Sox. Nunez, as Mike Francesa used to call him all the time. He is a really good hitter. He is going to be a boost to their lineup. I mean, he's not a power hitter, which they really needed. I mean, they needed Todd Frazier or something like that. I mean, they really needed a big power bat in the middle of that lineup. But the Red Sox right now,
he seems to be rejuvenated. I think they identified a guy with talent who maybe was not playing 100% because he was with a team that sucks. And plug him in the 3rd spot tonight, 3 for 4 with 4 RBIs.
Pretty good. Well, I mean,
he's 321 on the season.
Yeah. How about that, Nooney? I mean, besides tonight's win, I mean, they just can't get out of their own way right now. The Red Sox. I mean, granted, they're only a game now back in the loss to the Yankees. So, they play 10 times, or I'll rephrase, they play 6 times coming up. They actually have a 10-game stretch. The Yankees coming up against the Red Sox. So they have a Mets 4-game stretch with the Mets, 4-game, 2-2 series with the Mets, sandwiched between 2 series with the Red Sox. So that'll be an interesting 10-game stretch for the Yankees. So 6 with the Red Sox, and then after those 6 games with the Red Sox, they have another, I think, 3-game series at the stadium, late August, early September, I believe, and then that's it. Then they're done with the Red Sox for the rest of the year. So, they have the 9 or whatever it is remaining games, and right around Labor Day, and then that's it. So it should be a tight race, and it should be fun, and we can anticipate the last 2 months having a lot of intrigue and interest if you're a Yankee fan. But if you're a Met fan, boring.
Well, what are you gonna do? I mean, you watch Ahmed Rosario. He must have had about, from what I watched through like the 5th inning tonight, about 7 opportunities, it felt like, at shortstop, because Mats kept inducing ground balls. And he had one mishap where he double clutched on Trevor Story, kind of weakly hit, and Story ended up beating it out. It seemed like what was a routine play, but otherwise looked pretty sharp. Making his major league debut, the number one prospect in baseball. Am I saying that correctly now? Because Yoan Moncada was called up a week ago.
No, that's right. Baseball America has him ranked. Or they had him, now number 1, or after the Cuban guy that the Sox got for Sale was called up. But yeah, I mean, we've been screaming about this forever. Where is Ahmed Rosario? I mean, he should have been brought up. He should have been brought up honestly like a month and a half ago, maybe even 2 months ago. It's ridiculous that they waited till now, but whatever. It doesn't matter. Season's over for the Mets. We know that. They dumped off, Duda since our last broadcast, and, of course, Addison Reed that we touched on. They, very interesting, decided to acquire A.J. Ramos, the former closer of the Marlins, right? Wasn't he once the closer? So they bolstered their bullpen, which, should help them next year since he's on the contract. But, other than that, I mean, there's really nothing.
Former closer... closer of the Marlins, now closer of the Mets. That's pretty much what happened.
Oh, he was still closer of the Marlins? I thought he lost his job or something.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't think so.
I didn't know if he was still in there before they traded him. All right. So right now, if you're watching the Mets, you're there to watch DeGrom. You're there to watch Rosario. You're there to watch Conforto, who continues to hit. So that's
and Dominic Smith, when they call him up probably sometime later this month, the first baseman that's also hitting well. And I feel like anytime they talk about the Mets AAA hitters who are hitting well, that they always add a caveat that, well, it's Las Vegas. That league is the numbers are overinflated. So
because the ball carries and the Las Vegas Heat or something probably. Oh, so temper the expectations, Met fans. If you were excited, well,
don't give the players enough credit for what their numbers show. That's basically what I hear every time that comes up.
Well, hey, still that jump from AAA to major leagues, it always smacks you in the face at some point. Even if it doesn't smack you in the face right away, it usually at some point smacks you in the face. And when you say like, "Wow, I feel like overmatched right now against these guys." So, but yeah,
but you know what? The pitching at the starting pitching quality right now is garbage with so many top line guys down. Even Scherzer had to leave tonight's start early because he had a neck issue. Sale let up 7 runs tonight.
Kershaw's out. I didn't even see that. Ooh,
yeah. So like, what? It's like every single pitcher is like Kershaw's down. Cueto has a disaster of a year. Strasburg's out now. McCullers is out.
Hold on. Sonny Gray. Let's not forget Sonny Gray, the amazing Sonny Gray.
Sonny Gray. How many games has he even started this year? Actually,
he was in the American League right now. Yes, Sonny Gray.
It is just so starting pitching is just so decimated throughout the league. It's incredible.
Well, Sonny Gray started 16 games. He has a 3.13 ERA. Not bad. Not bad.
I thought for some reason, he missed more games, but I guess when you're out in Oakland, you starting at 10 o'clock.
3.43 ERA, and he has 94 strikeouts, 97 innings. All right, not too shabby.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Okay.
The guy's a good pitcher. He is a legitimate. I mean, even if he's not an ace, he's like a good number 2 pitcher. And if Severino continues to pitch like an ace, if Tanaka after his brilliant performance, what was it, Friday? I know he's been so up and down, and we've seen him have a brilliant performance and follow up with the stinker. But if he, can cut down the home runs and all that, the Yankees have and I know CeCe got hit a little bit tonight, but the Yankees have a solid rotation right now. Is it great? No.
Here's what I worry about Severino. Have you ever seen a pitcher like him just like pitch the way he pitches and not have a serious arm injury? I mean, the dude's throwing 98 to 100 miles an hour. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but situations all over.
But he still is pretty young, so do the old knock on wood thing there, because next thing you know, you'll hear that there's a tear or something, and you'll go. Everybody
do these starters really need to throw that hard? That's the thing. Like, I know that you can do it, but if you want to pitch 200 innings a year and not have serious arm injuries, like, I don't know. Is it okay to dial back a little bit and like try to sit 95, 96? Will that make a difference?
I mean, I don't know. Who knows what they say to him, if they think he's overexerting himself, or maybe they just say, hey, that's his natural motion, and his natural motion can generate that much power. Look,
But are there any starters you could ever think of like that?
Well, Verlander's a guy. Verlander was the guy that seemed to, throughout most of his career, not even just, in his twilight years now. I mean, majority of his career.
That was one guy that I was thinking. The one guy I was thinking.
There you go. Yep. That starts off throwing like 190s and then dials it up at the end of the game. And it's like,
Severino's throwing hard the whole time.
Yeah, true. No, he's throwing mid to upper 90s. Really,
I'm not saying he can't or shouldn't. It's just like, I mean, it's great. Look, but I don't know. If you're throwing 98 plus from start to finish, it hasn't been necessary to be a frontline starting pitcher in Major League Baseball and stay healthy.
No, they look. I mean, there's always that risk there. We know that the age-old debate as to what causes these arm injuries and why so many pitchers are having Tommy John, and the radar gun, and how they they pump up the radar gun, and how pitchers should just learn to if you could throw a mid-90s fastball, great, but you need to also learn how to pitch and perfect your craft and not rely on the gas and the average velocity and the differentiation between top end velocity and the average, and it should be a greater differentiation, like Chris Sale and blah blah blah. I mean, all those numbers are there, and there's been studies have been done on these pitchers and the numbers, and trying to figure out correlations and causation. And I mean, should it concern you? Yes. I mean, he's a young pitcher who hasn't had an arm problem yet, but when is the arm problem going to happen now? That's what you're thinking as a Yankee fan. Okay, geez, when is it going to happen? When are we going to find out about a torn ligament or something?
What I'm thinking of is that one of these hosts does rely on their gas. So
All right.
All right, let's let's move on. I heard about the story this morning. So there was a fan forum over the weekend, and in attendance was the commissioner, Roger Goodell. We're talking about the NFL,
of course.
And questions were directed to the Jets, and he was asked about CTE. He said he made a few different comments, but
Jamal Adams, the second, was it the second round pick? This guy,
he wasn't the first round pick.
Oh, the safety. Well, I'm trying to remember. I can't remember now. Who the safety? Or it was the
I think Jamal Adams is the safety. Excuse me, that was taken in the first round.
Okay, it was the first. Okay. I couldn't remember the first round pick's name. All right, continue.
I think it was.
All right.
Now we have to check.
No, I think you're right. I think I just got because I knew that they had taken the two safeties.
So basically, I mean, look, you could say this was taken out of context, but he was talking about CTE, and he said, "If I had a perfect place to die, I would die on the field." Now, I mean, look, the kid is cryptic. Look, he's 21 years old. He's kind of speaking off the cuff. Probably not coached on, thinking through how he wants to say, and he's speaking more about emotion, more about how much joy he probably feels while he's on the field, and that was his, weird way of saying it. But what was probably more strange about that is that there were fans there. This was a fan forum. Is that there were fans applauding.
Yeah,
after he said, "If I had a perfect place to die, I would die on the field." Like, okay. A little rhetoric's nice, but this is just a game, and is the game really worth dying for? and the Boomer and Carton substitutes for this morning were discussing this. The Moose and Bart Scott, actually.
Oh, geez, they had Bart Scott on
Bart Scott was on, on 6 o'clock this morning. I caught the first hour of the show.
With Mark Malusis, and Bart Scott, interesting combo. Okay.
Yep.
They should have brought in maybe Scaramucci to do the morning show.
and Bart Scott's just like, that's just a stupid thing to say. But he also was questioning. Now I don't want to say how seriously, but how much value we should put in the evidence that's been put forth with the CTE that's been uncovered in some of these players whose families have donated their brains for studies. He wasn't fully on board with the, this is definitely a football problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's alarming. It's scary. It's horrifying. It's a football problem. It's also, it could also be a hockey problem. I mean, it could be a problem in any sport where concussion.
Just to be clear, I was saying that he was saying that he is not fully certain that it is a football problem.
Oh, he said he's not certain that it is a football problem?
I mean, basically, he was kind of saying, his point was.
What is it? So what is he, a stooge of the NFL now, bro?
One of his points was that.
Well, it's crap, whatever it was, but go ahead.
The players whose brains were studied were specifically requested by their family because it was already suspected. Basically, he's saying something like, well, what if you take a random sample
size? Right. Okay, fine.
So he's saying, what if you just, in other words, what if you take a random sampling of NFL players' brains compared to a random sampling of people walking down the street? Will there be with CTE that much more prominent for NFL players versus, others, even just people in other sports or average people?
Well, I'm sure they have data, though.
That was his question.
But when they do brain scans or like whatever kind of research they're doing here, the studies that they're doing with with these brains. I mean, they do studies of other people's brains for various reasons. So don't you think that they would have data that they can come out and say, well, hold on, we find symptoms and signs of CTE in a lot of other people that for as far as we know, we're studying the brains for various reasons, whatever. And as far as we know, these people and not engage in any kind of competitive football for an elongated period of time, I'm sure they would come out and say that. That is such nonsense. That is crap. What a moron. You know what? And this is what the NFL has been propagating for so long. They tried to stifle this research. You saw the movie Concussion. I mean, they highlighted it there pretty well. The NFL has been absolutely deplorable in their behavior with the approach to this. It is a problem. I mean, are you going to get on, is the NFL, can you blame this on any person or the NFL as an entity? Look, this has been going on for a long time. It's a violent sport. It's a very violent collision sport, and the players, of course, assume the risks, which you hear a lot as a reason as to why. I'm sorry, I was having audio difficulties there. But it's a bunch of nonsense. And the bottom line is they studied 111 brains, 110 of them showed the signs of the CTE. Is it a small sample size? Yes, but we have heard so many stories about former players that have developed these horrifying and just awful symptoms of reduced motor skills and loss of memory and so many other things that just completely cripple their lives by the ages of 40 and 50 and sometimes even younger. And there were 8 players that were 40 and younger that had CTE, and there were 44 between the ages of 41 and 69. And these are all dead people, mind you. Keep in mind that the average life expectancy of a male in the United States is 78. So
well, and part of this, that's deplorable is that the NFL basically had documents sealed regarding the ramifications of CTE and didn't disclose the information to the players at the time. That to me is pretty much inexcusable, but
yeah.
Hey, it's and the flip side argument as well. If you take out the kinds of hits that are susceptible to CTE, is it football anymore? But you know what? You gotta find, and the NFL is constantly trying to figure that part out. So. At the end of the day, you and I are going to be watching on Thursday, Sunday, and Monday come every week starting September 7th or whatever it is this year, regardless of what they end up doing. Admittedly, I mean, let's not be hypocritical ourselves.
No, of course, and that's what the answer always is, right? Like that's always the response. Well, so what happens now? How do you stop this? How do you change this? Do you fundamentally change the game? Really, what can you do at this point? They've taken steps. They have taken steps, the NFL, with equipment, with trying to stop the blows to the head, which, players are still going to be reckless and dangerous, on the field. We know that. But they've tried to take steps to try and, quash that somewhat. And they have. And, so the NFL has at least acknowledged now that this is an issue, and they are now at least helping fund this research, which is good after all these years. The other disgraceful thing that involves the NFL with this is that they've the way that they've handled the old players going back to the 60s, players from the 60s and 70s and 80s, and there's still a pending lawsuit. They basically have told these players to go screw themselves when they've asked the NFL for help, with their health bill, their health bills and medical bills and all that. And the NFL has pretty much told these players, like, well, too bad, go screw yourselves, and we're not going to lift the finger to help you. And that's also partly due to the Players Association as well. So shame on the Players Association for that too. But what's the answer? Does that mean that we're just going to turn off the TV? No, it doesn't mean that. We're going to continue to be a fan and root for our teams and watch the sport and root for our fantasy teams, of course. So it's an alarming story. It's a horrifying story, and it's as much of an eye opener as I guess you can possibly get when you have 110 out of 111 brain studies showing symptoms and signs of CTE. So I don't know what's going to end up happening, but we'll see.
Well,
but sticking with the NFL, and I think we just lost the hip there, so I'll just continue. Nope, we have him here. So continuing with the NFL, I just wanted to also throw out the name Colin Kaepernick, which we're going to say that name in future episodes because he is still unemployed, Colin Kaepernick. Now, I could spend another hour talking about Colin Kaepernick, his situation, and how rotten his situation is. I won't. Just wanted to say one thing. Apparently, Ray Lewis, who you might remember, was a former middle linebacker for the Baltimore Ravens, a Hall of Fame linebacker and former Super Bowl champion and all that. And now, of course, he's a mouthpiece on NFL Network now. He used to be on CBS. Now he's NFL Network or something. I'm not even sure. I can't keep track. But I mean, he stinks. He's an awful commentator. He gives you very little insight. I have no desire to hear what he has to say anyway. I mean, the man... essentially, he's giving advice to Colin Kaepernick on how he should conduct himself, how to act as a person going forward. And this is a man, Ray Lewis, that was involved once in a double homicide. So now Colin Kaepernick should take, life lessons from a guy that was once involved in the murder of 2 people. So, Ray Lewis, go away. I would just love it if you just went away and never spoke in public again. And that's all I have to say.
Go away, like the starting pitcher says to the manager in Little Big League when the kid manager comes to the mound to try to take out the tobacco mouth-filled starting pitcher. Yep. Go away.
That's right.
Hipster moment of Zenith.
Yes, hipster moment of Zenith. You want to take this one?
Nope.
All right. Well, all right. Well, if you have anything to add to what I'm going to say, our hipster moment of Zenith this week is it's actually a very nice, touching story. It's you might remember the name Steve Bartman. Steve Bartman, of course, was the Chicago Cubs fan that is infamous for being the guy in the 2003 NLCS, the championship series. Game number 6, Cubs are up 3-0. There's one out in the bottom of the 8th inning, and there's a fly ball hit down the left field line. Moises Alou is giving chase. It looks like he can get his glove into the stands, right where the stands are, and make the catch. 2 outs, and Cubs are 4 outs away from the World Series, and yada yada. Instead, Steve Bartman, because he has his headphones on and is not aware of what's going on, and he's sitting there, and the ball's there. So, of course, instinctively, he sticks his hand up and inadvertently knocks the ball away from Moises Alou. And Steve Bartman became famous or infamous for that play, of course, as once the Cubs fans around him realized what happened, they started, screaming at him and cursing at him and throwing stuff at him. And the Cubs had to escort him out of the building so he wouldn't get hurt. And the Cubs fans, and this was not just a few people, this was a ton of people that acted so horribly and so just inhumanely to this poor guy. And he became an object of scorn for years in Chicago. People, found out where he lived, and they sent him hate mail, and they went to his house. And I mean, it was just, if you watch the 30 for 30 that ESPN did on it, I mean, it was really gut-wrenching watching it when you found out the whole story and how horribly this man was treated, and of course did not deserve one iota of it. But the one thing about Steve Bartman is that he has never to this day done an interview. He has never said anything in public. He has never done anything to capitalize on, the notoriety that he gained, of course, not to his liking. But anyway.
Other than a 30 for 30.
Huh?
Other than a 30 for 30?
Well, no, he wasn't involved in it at all, though. They did the story. At all.
He didn't acknowledge. He didn't even. I guess he didn't have to allow any of it. There was no authorization he had to give on his part.
No, I guess. I mean, maybe he had to give authorization, but he was not at all involved in it.
But how would you know how horrible it was for him if he wasn't even involved? Like how do you know how gut-wrenching it was for all these years if he wasn't involved?
No. What I'm saying is he wasn't involved in the production of the 30 for 30. He didn't give an interview. He didn't say what, he didn't speak. He didn't, but they had all that. They had documentation of everything that happened to him. Like he changed jobs. And I mean, they had all this documented. I mean, they went very in depth without talking to him. And it was a phenomenal 30 for 30. It was one of the best ones I think ESPN has ever done, and they've done good ones, but that was one of the best ones that they've ever done. I mean, it was absolutely phenomenal. Again, very in depth without talking to him. So Well, anyway, so the Cubs, I think, had offered him a zillion times over and over, come to a World Series, like last year, come to a World Series game, sit in the box. I think I remember seeing that anyway, and he always refused. No. But the Cubs decided to give Steve Bartman a 2016 Chicago Cub World Series ring, which I believe apparently he will keep. He will accept that as a gift, which is a very nice story, very nice gesture on the part of the Cubs. I guess Bartman actually did give a quote. He didn't give an interview or anything, but he did give a quote like, "I'm touched, and this is an honor, and I'm so happy about this," and yada yada.
So touched.
Huh?
We're all so touched.
Yes, we were. It was after watching that 30 for 30 and getting the whole story. I mean, you're just amazed at just the inhumanity that people can show towards each other, especially for something like this. And again, the guy didn't deserve one iota of it, as of course it wasn't his fault that the Cubs lost that game. Everybody likes to forget that Alex Gonzalez booted a double play ball and opened the floodgates for the Marlins to score 8 runs, and they would go on to win. And they still had Game 7. They could have won Game 7. They lost Game 7 too. So just the fact that this guy was blamed for the Cubs losing that series in 03, but nice story. Gets the World Series ring and can kind of close that chapter, of course, as the Cubs win the World Series last year, and Bartman can finally put this all behind him, as I'm sure all of Chicago and all of the jerks that participated in this gave him as well. So
we could only hope so.
All right, next. So, that's the hipster moment of Zenith. A very touching, as the hip said, my hipster moment of Zenith. So we can now move on to, of course, the final segment of the week. Everybody's favorite, yours and mine. And that would, of course, be the hipster beer of the week. And take it away, Mr. Hip.
Okay, so we've been sampling a lot of beers from a lot of places in recent times, and we're going to acknowledge a brewery that has not been named before on this show, I don't believe. Hudson Valley Brewery, located in Beacon, New York, which is right in the heart of Hudson Valley. If you're in the area and you haven't been to Beacon, I highly suggest it. A nice like downtown area, and it's close to the Hudson River. There's a lot of trendy shops and bars, and there's a restaurant, a cool museum called the Beacon. So Hudson Valley Brewery, the name of the beer, Flying Colors, which is on tap in the New York City area as we speak, and it gets high remarks from the Hip included. I believe the Lip had it as well at Fool's Gold in the lower, it'd be Soho, I guess, technically.
That's right.
It's a good craft beer bar.
Yes.
And it's described as a sour farmhouse ale matured in oak with raspberries, hibiscus, and orange zest.
Oh, orange zest.
It wasn't enjoyable sour. Now, Hudson Valley Brewery, I believe, has started doing can releases out of their brewery, and they're getting high marks as well. Good luck getting up there and getting cans. But there you have it, the hipster moment of Zenith. And away we go with the baseball and football on the horizon. As training camp stories emerge, there's plenty to discuss and evaluate and overanalyze as we gear up for the NFL season. So look for us to cover some more of that and some more Yankees and whatever else may come. Yes, for us to joke about and piss on each other over, because that's what we do best here at Hip and the Lib. Yes.
Maybe another Anthony Scaramucci joke or two if he doesn't completely go away. Yes. I'm sure everybody loved the Scaramucci jokes. All right.
Can't get enough of that. Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Harvard Law School. All right. Harvard Law School.
Let me just remind you one more time. Let me remind you.
And the